Hello everyone, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the November My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. And this kit features the Prima collection by Frank Garcia called Christmas Sparkle. And for this layout, I'm going to be using some strips of paper to create a background, something that I love to do and I do quite often. I started by cutting out some strips of paper and by cutting out 2 squares. These squares are about 5 inches. I draw some pencil lines to help guide me put down the strips of paper. I want to make sure that the center piece of paper is centered. So I am turning the paper over just to make sure that that piece of paper will be sitting right in the center of this square. And then I'm taking the strips of paper and I am pressing them down against the ATG adhesive that I've already put down on half of the square. And I wanted to mention that I forgot to ink the edges of these strips, and I really wish that I had done that. I think that that would have been a nice touch, but I didn't do that, but I did ink some of the other areas of the layout, which you'll see in a little bit. So now I have this square and I create one more square just like the first one. You can see there that I'm just finishing up the second square and trimming off the papers on the edge. And then I'm going to cut those squares in half, and you'll see those in a moment. Now I'm measuring, I'm going to draw a border around the outside. And I want to use some of the blue dotted paper that you see over to the right. I want to use those pieces of paper to create a border around the outside of the layout. And I don't know if you saw that on the left-hand side. One of my dogs made a little guest appearance. Here are the squares. I have cut them in half. You could see that I cut them on a diagonal, the opposite diagonal from the way the strips of paper are laying. And then I am layering them in the corners and using those lines that I drew as a guide to where I should attach the triangles down. The blue strips of paper are 1 inch wide, and I'm going to make a frame out of them. So that means that I'm going to leave 2 of the strips as they are, and then I fold the corners down on 1 strip of paper, as you saw, and then I cut along those fold lines, and then I use that strip as a template for the strip on the other side. And then it looks like a frame once I have everything attached down. I'm going to pop up all of these strips on a little bit of fun foam to give the frame around the outside some dimension. And I test out some Stormy Sky on a little piece of scrap paper, and then I use the Distress Oxide Stormy Sky, and I ink the edges of the 4 strips of paper. And now I'm going to be adding some fun foam behind the paper. As I said, I wanted to pop up the frame, and that will give the frame a little bit of dimension. So I just used my ATG adhesive to attach all of these strips down. And for the last 2 strips, I'm just going to put the foam right on the back of the layout and layer those strips right on top of the foam. And then I do the exact same thing to the other side of the layout, and then the frame is complete. I'm going to be layering a square in the center. That's an 8 inch square, and I'm also using one of the pattern papers to put in the center of the square. It almost looks, I guess, like a diamond at this point. And I was trying to see if there were any pieces of paper that I wanted to put behind this paper, but I decided that I was just going to ink the edges again with the Distress Oxide. And in addition to inking the edges of the pattern paper, I decided that I was going to ink the edges of the larger square, the white square as well. Once both of the squares are inked, I put some adhesive on the back of the pattern paper and layer it on top of the white paper. And I tried in the center of the layout, and I like the way this is coming so far. Now I'm adding some lace to the back of the white square. When I got to the corners, I wasn't really sure what to do, so I just folded the lace a little bit. I just kind of gathered it together, and the corners are not super noticeable on the final layout, so it worked out okay, I think. I'm just taking a look at how the lace looked, and I thought that it was a nice addition to the square. I like the idea of really highly embellishing Christmas layouts. I feel that you can use tons of glitter and lace and embellishments, and it's all fine because Christmas can be a little over the top as far as decorating. So I really like to add a lot of sparkle and shine and detail and lace and embellishment to my Christmas layouts. Where the two pieces of lace met, I folded them over each other, and then I used a little bit of Scotch tape to hold everything down. This certainly was not an expert job as far as manipulating the lace, but that's definitely not something that I have to do a lot. I don't really sew, so I just did my best. So I was thinking that I wanted the square to be very sturdy, so I put another piece of cardstock behind the square. It was very flimsy, and it has to be popped up so that it will sit properly on the page on top of the frame that's around the outside that's already popped up. Then I added some fun foam to the back of the square, and then I put some adhesive on the fun foam, and then I used some of the dotted blue paper that I used for the frame, and I punched out a very thin, delicate border to go on the inside of the square. It faces the center of it, and I punched out 4 strips of it, and now I'm measuring out each of the strips, and then I'm going to attach those down the way you see them laid down. So I use an EK Success punch for that. It's a very old punch. I love my border punches, and I try to get as much use out of them as possible. Over the years, border punches have come in and out of style a few times. I'll always hold on to my border punches though, because I feel that I'll always get a lot of use out of them. I like this one because all of the little holes are very, very tiny hearts. It's very delicate, and sometimes when there are a lot of large elements, I like to add something a little delicate to the layout. This is the photo I'm going to use. It's already mounted on some white cardstock, and then I'm going to attach it down to this piece of silver paper. This is a photo of both of my daughters on Christmas Eve, and we always spend Christmas Eve at my sister's house, and she has a beautiful tree, so we always try to take pictures in front of her beautiful tree. I'm trying to decide what embellishments to add. I was pretty sure that I was going to use these angels. These are from the die cut pack. There was another die cut that was sheet music, so I cut it in half and put half on the left and half on the right. And I'm adding a number of the die cuts that are florals. And then once I have those things where I think I might want them, I start playing around with the Prima flowers, the dimensional flowers that are in the kit. I also add a little banner that says all the sparkles, and that is going to serve as my title. Now I'm adding some silver pine branches. These were die cut on a piece of white paper, and then I used some silver embossing powder to make them silver. And I love the way the silver looks with this collection. The flowers have a lot of touches of gold, but I really wanted to highlight the silver. There's a lot of silver in the pattern papers. I just love the way the silver looks with the light blue and the pink. I think it is a great color combination. Then I decided to take those sheet music die cuts off. I wasn't sure if it was getting a little too confusing. I love to have embellishments, but I also don't want to totally overwhelm the page, although there's a lot of embellishment on this page. And then I go around the layout and I pick up all the die cuts that have a white border, and I trim off the white border. Sometimes I really want the white border, but sometimes it's not necessary. It can be great for creating contrast and separating your embellishments from the background, but I didn't think that they were necessary. So I did use some of the Stormy Sky Distress Oxide to ink the edges, and I inked the edges of the angels and of those floral die cuts, and also of the title once I've trimmed off the white border. Once all of those die cuts are trimmed and inked, I start working on flowers. I want to make the flowers a little bit more sparkly, so I take some heavy duty matte gel medium and I use an old paintbrush, and I put a little bit of the gel medium just on the edges of the flowers, and I then dip them into the diamond dust and I allow them to dry. There are some flowers that already have centers. They have the gold centers. And then there are 2 small roses. So for the roses, I put a tiny bit of the gel medium on the center of the rose as well, but I don't do that for the flowers that have the center already. Then I put the flowers back into their places. And of course, I have to rearrange them a little bit because that's just the way my mind works. I always want to try different things and see how all the combinations look. I trimmed some of the pine needles, and then I decided that I wanted to include the angels, but I didn't want them to be so close to the photo. I wanted them to be more of a part of the clusters that are on either side of the photo. Now I'm adding one of my favorite embellishments, which is pearls, to the layout. I'm using all different sizes of a very pretty green and a light pink to the layout. I'm putting the larger pearls closer to the flowers and the smaller pearls further away for the most part. And I'm putting all the pearls on the pine needles. And I also ended up adding some very tiny white pearls to the layout as well. So I arrange all of the pearls, and then I use some Aleene's gel glue and I attach them down. And I don't show footage of me adding pearls to the whole layout because it really took me quite a while to not only decide where they should go, but to glue them down. But I did want to show this entire process of selecting them and arranging them and then gluing them down to the lower cluster. And then off camera, I do the same thing to all the other clusters on the layout. And I love to add photo corners, and I add them to most of my layouts. And on this layout, I really felt that the photo area did need a little bit of something extra. So I inked up the edges of some of these photo corners that I punched out using the punch you see on the right. That's an EK Success scalloped photo corner punch. And then I ink the edges of all of those photo corners, and then I'm using the ATG gun to attach them down to the layout. Now I'm using some self-adhesive pearls, and I think that this color pink is perfect for the layout. These are from the Eyelet outlet. And I also attach a bow right over the photo, and that completes this layout. Here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed it. In the description box, you will find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website, and you can check out this month's beautiful limited edition kit and all of the other kits that they have available this month. And I wanted to say thank you so much for all of those lovely comments that you've left me. I'm a little behind in answering them, but I will answer everyone. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.